Hola de nuevo, Carlota. Seguimos conociendo protagonistas de cómo va a ser esta movilidad del futuro. Nos acompaña a continuación Joy Ajlouny, cofundadora de FETCHR. Joy, hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, I want to ask you about yourself, about your job. Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Love that. So my name is Joy Ajlouny. I'm basically based in Silicon Valley, California, and in Dubai. I built a logistics company called FETCHR. I've raised over $100 million in venture capital. So I built a logistics company called FETCHR. And you want to roll that again? Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Oh.
Good job. Okay. You don't have to worry.
So I built a logistics company called FETCHR, made the list of top female founders of the world. And it is a company that specializes in last mile logistics.
Okay.
Yes. So I came here today to attend the conference and talk about the future of mobility.
How did you see logistics in this mobility of the future? Why we should pay attention to that sector?
Well, last mile logistics is a very hot ticket right now. It's a hot topic because of what happened with COVID. Everybody started shopping online. So everything from getting food to grocery deliveries to clothing deliveries, everything delivered to your door. So when you have something delivered to your door, that's last mile logistics. It's the actual last mile of getting the product in your hand. And that's with companies like Amazon, who grew 220% during the COVID crisis. This is really a very hot segment because of what happened in the crisis.
And how can we do this last mile more sustainable?
So electric cars, of course, right? That is the hot ticket. Right now, in the United States and in other places of the world, people are being picked up by a taxi that has no driver in it, right? So the future is all autonomous driving. It's not just electric vehicles, but it's autonomous driving where you don't need someone in the car. And that's happening today in Silicon Valley. And this is sustainable because it has the emission fuel situation where there's no fossil fuel. So I'm excited to be here today to see all the different vehicles that are out there being shown here today and the different companies that are here showing at the Mobility Conference. But this is absolutely the future, electric vehicles and autonomous driving.
And how can we reach that goal? We can be in events like we are here today. We can be in conversation with administrations, organizations, companies, civil society. How do you think we should to take that road?
Well, I think the most important person in this whole equation of sustainable mobility is governments. Governments need to make a real commitment, not a talking commitment, but a real commitment to make this a reality, because the future of mobility is mobility as a service, which is basically the autonomous revolution of never owning a car. And this is regulations, this is governments that have to get involved. I mean, you see scooters and you see electric bikes, but there should be lanes that are exclusively for these vehicles, whether it's walking or the electric scooter or the electric bike. There has to be an involvement on a governmental level to make this a reality. And that's something that every government needs to really focus on. Even with refueling, with the electric rechargers, you need to build a huge infrastructure of electric charge stations. This is all on a very high governmental level. And it will not be sustainable or a movement without that real commitment on a very high level.
How did you see this regulating problem right now? I don't know if you have a country which we can use as an example.
Well, the United States is definitely, and Silicon Valley, let me change that. Silicon Valley, California is definitely the look to, like the whole world looks to them. And you can see that they're implementing it. Like right now, today, in the United States, we have driverless taxis, right? So it goes a step beyond electric cars. The step is this autonomous situation. And in the United States, you can see there are complete areas that are no cars at all. Everything is electric, everything is motor scooters, walking. But again, it's a government entity. So I think the rest of the developing countries have to look to Silicon Valley as an example of what the future is doing.
Yes, but we need investment to achieve that goal. I'm thinking of the developing countries.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is an investment, but it has to be on a high governmental level. There is no private company that can do that, right? Governments need to get involved by offering incentives. Governments should stand up and say, okay, by 2050, to have a plan. Nobody can drive a car that requires gasoline, period. Like the governments need to take a stand and say, okay, for everybody who's going to buy an electric car, there's going to be an incentive, whether tax-wise, there has to be a high level that makes this a movement.
Okay.
And there has to be a combining of the public and the private sector. It can't just be, private. It has to be public as well, because transport, mass mobility, right, is buses. When you're moving huge amounts of people, that has to be public sector involved with the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how mobility as a service gets integrated, when it's combined.
So that's the vision. Joy, thank you so much for attending us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bueno, Carlota, pues ahí lo teníamos, esa visión y como nos decía Joy, el papel de los gobiernos que tienen que tomar la primera posición en toda esta transformación.
Muchas